school tie. "Wouldn't it be silly if you didn't wear a top hat and a monocle and an old school tie?" he said to the worm. "Quack, quack," said the worm. Next, Mr. Silly met a pig wearing trousers and a bowler hat. "Wouldn't it be silly if you didn't wear trousers and a bowler hat?" he said to the pig. "Moo," said the pig. "Isn't that silly?" It was in the middle of Mr. Silly's walk that he had his idea. It was a beautifully silly idea, quite the silliest idea he'd ever had. He hurried into town and bought himself a pot of paint and a paintbrush. The day of the great awarding of the Nonsense Cup arrived. A huge crowd assembled in the city square to see who was going to win the cup. The King of Nonsense Land mounted the specially built platform. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said to the crowd in the city square, "it is my pleasure today to award the Nonsense Cup to whoever has had the silliest idea of the year. One of the silliest ideas of the year," continued the king, "is by Mr. Muddle the farmer. He has managed to grow, of all things, a square apple." The crowd clapped as the square apple was held up by Mr. Muddle for everybody to see. He felt sure he was going to win. "However," said the king, and Mr. Muddle's face fell, "we have had an even sillier idea entered by Mrs. Nincompoop." It was a teapot. Quite the silliest teapot there had ever been. It was a teapot that couldn't pour tea. The crowd broke into thunderous applause. "I therefore have great pleasure," announced the king, "in presenting the Nonsense Cup to—" Just then, he looked up and stopped in astonishment. Now, in the middle of the city square, there is a tree. It's always been there, and it was at this tree that the king was looking in astonishment. "What," he cried, "has happened to that tree?" Everybody turned to look. The tree had green leaves, bright green leaves. Not pink leaves like all the trees in Nonsense Land, but green. There was an amazed silence. "It was me," piped up Mr. Silly. "I painted all the leaves green last night when you were all asleep." "A green tree?" exclaimed the king. "Who ever heard of a green tree?" "A green tree!" shouted the crowd. "How silly!" And they started to applaud. Mr. Silly smiled modestly. The king held up his hands. "I think," he said, "that this is the silliest idea I have ever heard of, and therefore I award the Nonsense Cup to Mr. Silly." The crowd cheered and cheered. Mr. Silly went pink with pride, and a bird, perched high up in the branches of the silly green tree, looked down. "Ruff!" it said, and flew off, backwards. Little Miss Giggles. Can you giggle and eat cornflakes at the same time? Little Miss Giggles could. Do you giggle while you're asleep? Little Miss Giggles did. Can you giggle while you're brushing your teeth? Little Miss Giggles could. She was the giggliest girl in the world, and she lived in Chuckle Cottage. But one terrible day last summer, you'll never guess what happened. She lost her giggle. Just like that. Gone. She had woken up giggling, as usual. She had giggled her way downstairs, as usual. And she had